No, I've gotten to a place in my life, in my relationship with God, that you kind of know before you really know. But if you're ever in a situation where you see the obvious fingerprints of God and His provision in your life, providing for you, it's always mercifully done. And the closer you are to God, the more you realize how merciful He is to us. We don't earn anything. And I can speak from experience that I've seen God contort Himself and bend over backwards to provide for all of my needs. He's pulled me from the fire my whole entire life. And it can be frustrating when you realize that in certain aspects of your life you may lack, and God simply chooses to not do anything in that area. Some of the greatest gifts God gives us is discipline. It's refinement. And we have to get to a place in our relationship with God that we trust on Him to provide for us in the way that we need, not in the way that we want. And through that process of refinement and discipline, sometimes it will be uncomfortable. And if you had the power to choose what you wanted when you wanted it, you would most certainly choose a different path. But I have to ask myself, if I was 6'3", tall, dark, and handsome, if everything came easy to me, if I found that I always worked my way up the corporate ladder at work and became a big deal and an overnight success, would those things have made me a better person or just a real big egomaniacal douchebag? And then I start drawing other question marks over my head, like, what about those people I've met who kind of have been that? They are the poster child for things coming easy to them, for them becoming overnight successes, and miraculously they handle it with grace and humility. What does that say about me? Could it be that I lack in certain departments because God is still refining me? Could it be that I'm going through misery and pain and all those things because I'm simply developing? Does the pot tell the potter how to shape him? Job grumbled before God, but notice it was directed before God. He knew who to cry out to. If you're a Christian, if you have a relationship with God, I don't care, Orthodox, Protestant, whatever the case may be, if you have a relationship with God, you're going to at some point grumble before God. And that is a good thing. You know where to go. When I was a child and I needed something, I'd go straight to mommy because I knew where to go. That's good. Sometimes she would tell me no. And that too is good because I probably don't need to fill my belly with cookies at 6:30 in the morning. Even though I told her I couldn't have my cookies, I'm running away and you're a horrible parent and you must not love me. It was an emotional reaction to a situation my flesh really wanted, and mommy told me no. Well, sometimes it's like that in our relationships with God. And sometimes we're just in a season of refinement. Sometimes we're in a season of healing and of rest. And we're all in different seasons. And sometimes our seasons align and sometimes they don't. So long as you're grumbling before God, it's okay. Most people grumble because they're looking for understanding or empathy, or they're simply just venting. Sometimes we grumble because we're toxic. And we're going to find that we're going to maintain a miserable lifestyle until God gets us to a place of thanksgiving and humility, where we can then begin to discover God's grace and a satisfaction and a love overflowing that has nothing to do with our circumstances. And that is a hard place and a hard lesson, but it reaps a great reward in your relationship with your Creator. Grumbling is not a bad thing. It just depends on where it's coming from and why. John the Baptist is often pointed to. Well, no, God says directly, there will never be any as great as John the Baptist. And when John was in prison, prior to him being beheaded, he sent followers to Christ. John didn't lack in faith. He wasn't burdened and held back by his belief in how miraculous God was. And he sent word to Christ that said, "Are you who you say you are?" In other words, hey, I'm still here in prison. And Christ simply replied, he's seen the lame healed. He's seen me open the eyes of the blind and save the wretched. In other words, yeah, and you already know I am who I am. Doesn't necessarily give you a free ticket to get out of pain. If you don't experience that at some point in your journey, you're doing it wrong.